I am so deeply honoured by this award and gobsmacked. I mean, when I was told, I I said, why me of all the people? I mean, it's really not for me to say, but I suppose, which is a deep compliment, that the work that I've been, fortunate to be part of has reached and touched the audiences in Spain. And I have had, coincidentally, I've been working with a lot of Spanish-speaking film artists recently. Luis Siqueira, who did the costumes on Nightmare Alley, and of course Guillermo del Toro, having made 2 films with him relatively recently. I'm about to start working with Alfonso Cuarón, and I've finally, after years of having conversations with Pedro Almodóvar, we're preparing to make a film next year. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, maybe it's just that strange confluence of events, but I'm absolutely thrilled. I remember when I was at high school, I saw Le Chien Andalou, the Buñuel film, and that just changed everything for me. Even though it was obviously made so many years ago, it shifted my sense of the moving image. Up until then, I'd probably just seen the usual standard fare that people had seen. But when I saw that, I think I was about 14 or 15 when I saw it, and still the images from that movie are burned into my retina. Mm-hmm. And also, she's not Spanish per se; she's Argentinian. But Lucrecia Martel is one of my all-time favorite directors. Mm-hmm. Well, working with Pedro is a long-held dream. Talk about films that have changed the way I looked at cinema. Women on the Verge is just, I hadn't seen anything like it. When he burst onto the scene, I saw the film once again when I was in high school. And, All About My Mother is an absolute masterpiece. But this is the thing with somebody who is a true artist like Pedro, is every time he takes us in a fresh direction, but it's an extension of his visual and emotional worldview, and we just come to expect that of him, and so I know that the experience will be life-changing. What the result is, I can't say, and that's part of the creative process, is that you throw a lot of things into the mix, and you see what lands. But he's writing at the moment. And we had a rehearsal yesterday, and I've never been more excited. Yes, we have a huge responsibility, I think, in the creative arts, because there's so much sort of divisive polemic here in Spain, in Australia. There's not a country that's not touched by that separation of people from themselves and rising nationalism, and I think that sort of polemic is incredibly simplistic, and I think that the creative arts deal with the grey areas. So we have an incredible responsibility to provide a space for people where they can sit and ingest complex ideas in an empathetic way, that they can look at things outside their own experience. It was Godard who said this fantastic thing that art isn't real life. It's an extension or an augmentation of real life that allows us to think, thoughts beyond our own experience. And I think that's so it's wonderful and an incredible honour, that Goya have created an award specifically for that, because I think as we emerge from the pandemic, we have an enormous responsibility to lean into those grey areas and not deliver simplistic narratives that are derivative, but to try and push people into, provoke people in an exciting way, and that's sometimes by making them laugh, and it's sometimes by making them feel things that make them feel uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. You have to bring people along. If you try and force people to do things, or force people to think things, or force people to think like you're not going to get anywhere. It's just, you're going to push people away. Acting in the first place. I'm interested in the way societies work, and I'm interested in dysfunction in characters, but also dysfunction in societies. And so when you can see a dysfunction, when I see a dysfunction and people invite me to be part of a conversation that discusses that dysfunction, whether it's human displacement or inactivity around the with climate change, which is self-evident, then I welcome being part of that space. I'm not an expert. I've never claimed to be a scientist nor an expert on human displacement or statelessness. But if you have a platform, then you can invite people to have a non-fear-based conversation. And of course that gets shut down because as an actor, people just like you to look pretty, as an actress, to look pretty, to make a film and not talk about things. But I know that all of us in Adam McKay's film, Don't Look Up, for instance, a movie about climate change that's not about climate change, we were all interested in the subject matter. Obviously, we wanted to work with Adam and we wanted to work with each other, but we thought this is this is the elephant in the room. No one's talking about this. Why don't we find an entertaining way where the conversation when people leave the cinema or leave their lounge room is an exciting one, is a challenging one. You know, I think that is the thing, is that I'm not interested in agitprop. I see it as sort of parallel lanes. I think there's, you know, the chance that I've had in my small way to be an advocate for, you know, for women in my industry or for refugees and the increasing amount of people who will be displaced because of climate issues. And then there's my work. And I'm not interested in the intersection. Because I'm not interested in making agitprop, but, you know, I'm interested in non-fear-based but provocative conversations. I think they're worth having. Mm. Well, I think we have to process going into the pandemic. You know, we were having monumental changes, you know, sort of calling out systems that were dysfunctional and not serving the people. If you think about what happened with in the States with the union, IATSE, it's really, really important that crews are able to speak up and be treated well, the people behind the camera, and that there's equity of pay, there's equity of opportunity. And of course, we're going to fall down as an industry, but I've been very impressed, actually, by not only the resilience of the industry to keep making work and find, because we're a creative industry, so of course we're going to find creative solutions. So a lot of other industries look to us about how to keep functioning, you know, because I'm very proud of us as an industry that we did. And I hope going forward that we don't forget the lessons learned and the things that have been exposed by Black Lives Matter and the Me Too movement, the global movement. Movements like that don't take place unless they're grounded in absolute truth. And so moving forward and as we emerge, I think it's really, really important to fold those lessons in. And you can already see changes, positive changes. I mean, if you look at the two women tonight who are being honoured by the Goya's directors, female directors, one who's had a very long and prestigious career, and the other one who's Clara Roquette. You know, that she's a more emerging director. That's so exciting that institutions are saying, let's not be lazy. Let's think broadly about the work that's out there, and as a result, these people, more people will go and see that work because their academies, whether it's here in Spain or in America or Australia or England or, you know, out of Mongolia, you know, it's they have a responsibility to invite an audience to see the breadth of the work that is actually being made. And from the exposure to a bigger audience base, those women and people from different cultures will have a chance to make more work. And I think that's a really exciting thing, not only for audiences, but for the industry itself.